The USDA Natural Resources Conservation Service, NRCS, has assisted local watershed project sponsors to develop and implement watershed plans for 2,000 watershed projects across the nation. As part of this assistance, 11,800 flood control dams have been constructed by local communities with the assistance of the NRCS Watershed Program. 2,041 of these dams have been constructed in Texas. John Foster describes how Texas is meeting the challenges of operating, maintaining, and rehabilitating dams through the use of state funding.
To start with, there are some unique things in the state of Texas. There's a few other states around the country that have the opportunities that we do, but there's not many of them. But one of the things that the state of Texas has is the ability to help provide non-federal match to the programs through USDA and NRCS as far as flood control and emergency watershed protection plan type activities are concerned. The state of Texas provides us $7.5 million right now in state funds that we use to provide to sponsors so they can use it as match for the federal grants that they qualify for. And so that's something that we've been doing that we think, and it monopolizes a lot of our state budget, but it does help get more work done, and leveraging funds really provides an advantage to our sponsors of watershed structures in the state of Texas as far as getting things done. Soil and water conservation districts are one of the sponsors in almost every single situation in Texas for watershed projects. They have the responsibility for operation and maintenance and being an entity that is responsible for helping to facilitate repair when necessary and when funds are available. Soil and water conservation districts in Texas do not have taxing authority, and so they were paired up with other political subdivisions of state government that do, such as county governments, water control and improvement districts, special watershed authorities, things like that. So they are very dependent upon assistance from the Soil and Water Conservation Board in Texas, the state agency, as far as being able to provide the match for federal grants. Because as we know, the rehabilitation program requires a 35% non-federal match, and emergency watershed protection program requires 25% match. And so whenever those dollars from the federal government are available, we use our state funds to try and capture those federal dollars and get as much done as we can. And if we have additional dollars left after we're matching those things, we use them for operation and maintenance and other structural repairs in places in the state where it's beneficial and needed, and to try to prevent something bad from happening in the event of a catastrophic type of rainfall event or something like that. One of the largest projects that the Texas State Soil and Water Conservation Board has ever been involved in was a rehabilitation project that was on the books. Funds had been requested from the NRCS, but at the time it was becoming critical. There just wasn't the funding in the budget for that particular program at NRCS. So through the funds that the State Soil and Water Conservation Board in Texas have, we chose to address the issue directly with state funds. It's Mountain Creek Site 10, which is in it's a large dam that is on the north side of Highway 287 in between Mansfield and Midlothian, Texas, which is due south of Arlington between Dallas and Fort Worth. It was one of these structures that was the biggest concern out of all of them, over 2,000 structures in Texas. That one was the one that was really giving the engineers sleepless nights. We were very concerned about it. It had terrible slope slides. The plunge pool and the principal spillway pipe had been eroded away. I think the explanation for what had actually happened was the pipe separated under the embankment, and so water was flushing out from within the dam, and that caused a backwash. And anyway, the dam was in pretty bad shape. And we had funding from our state agency that was available from the Texas legislature. We knew it was the #1 worst site in Texas, and we decided to appropriate funds to it. And we did that, and after a couple of years worth of work, we have a very well-repaired, rehabilitated structure. They flattened out the slope of the dam. They put in a roller compacted concrete spillway into the center of it to be the auxiliary spillway, and it's been a resounding success at this point, and we're very proud of that project. But that was one of those things that, since then the federal government has had some money for rehabilitation and for other programs that can help work on this, but at the time that was the best option, and our agency, the Texas State Soil and Water Conservation Board, moved forward with funding that. The watershed program in Texas is important to Texas and to people in Texas that don't even realize that it exists, because those floodwater retarding structures, those flood control dams, those things are all over the state. And of course they were originally built, a lot of them in rural areas that now are in more suburban or urban areas. It is important that they be maintained, even if they have exceeded their designed life. They're still there, they're still doing their function. It is important that they be maintained through some type of assistance, because the local government entities are not necessarily geared up or ready from a financial standpoint to do what needs to be done. So the federal watershed program, rehabilitation, operations funding, emergency watershed protection program, all of those programs are critically important to the state of Texas, because these structures are now in the most populated area of the state of Texas. And while we do have a modestly funded state program to assist with those types of activities, the federal programs through USDA and RCS are absolutely critical to maintaining the infrastructure that's in place, because bridges have been built to certain design criteria below them because those structures were there. People now live in places where they were not living in the past, that are, homes, lives, and property and infrastructure are all dependent on the continued stability and existence of these structures, and they do a good job. And just because they've exceeded their design criteria from an economic perspective doesn't mean that they're not still important from a local perspective and a state perspective, to the continued protection of those things that I mentioned.
For more information about the Texas Watershed Program, visit the Texas State Soil and Water Conservation Board website or the Texas NRCS website.